Hey everyone, this is Michael Cohen, the Tech Rabbi. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to break down the menu and all of the different feature tools in Adobe XD. This is part of a series of videos where I'm going to show you how to use XD if you have no design experience, if you have no especially user interaction and user experience design experience, and if you're looking to bring this into your classroom especially so that your students have the ability to create interactive experiences through the prototype process so that they can create content to showcase their learning, showcase things that they're passionate about in the classroom, and that others should be able to interact with it. So we're going to start on this video right now. This is video 1. We're going to keep these short and sweet, and we're going to get into this. Let's go. So I have this interface right now that's already been created. This is my innovation framework that's been inspired by lean startup, design thinking, a lot of other entrepreneurship components. And also, I'm obsessed with alliteration, so everything begins with the letter I. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to take a look at this menu bar. We're going to walk through each one of these tools. And you should notice, if you have any experience with Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, a lot less tools. There's no nested tools. This is a very simple process. This is a very simple program. And if you want to create things that are a little bit more advanced, you can actually import those from Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, but we're going to focus right now on Adobe XD. So before we get started, I just want to showcase the layout of what's going on here. So the top menu bar, you have your home over here, which is all of your different designs, and then over here you have your ability to engage in the design component, the prototype, and the share. Now, in this section here, if you are confused why it's not letting you design things, you might be in the prototype area. So just letting you know that. So here we are in the design space. We have our assets and selector tool. The assets let you choose your colors so you can quickly get those. It lets you create character styles. So it sort of has like a blend of InDesign, and especially the components. This is huge, and we'll have a whole video dedicated to this, but you should just know components are if you create something and then you edit it slightly somewhere in your design, it's going to edit all of those instances of that component if you do it the right way. Next, we have our square. Very simple, square or rectangle. You have your little corner targets here that'll let you create rounded edges. You have then a menu that's going to be the same for all of the shape tools, which lets you, of course, align the different shapes that you have if you have multiple shapes selected. It's going to let you do some cool additive and subtractive combination of shapes. It's going to let you, of course, edit. Responsive resize, important piece of that. Appearance, where you can change the opacity. You're able to change the style of the line, the border, change the thickness, etc., and the fill. Now, with the color fill, right, you could just change the color, right? You can eyedrop and say, you know what, like, here's where my color's at. I love that color. And one of the things that wasn't so obvious for me, and it's because I sometimes get distracted learning new software, even in the Adobe suite of software, because I have such experience with Photoshop and Illustrator that I sometimes just totally forget, where things could be in a new interface. So if you're looking for gradient, the gradient is actually nested underneath where it says solid color. So if we go over to gradient here and we take a look at what's going on here, right, we're going to get rid of the border. We're going to select this. And one of the things about this program works a little bit different than, let's say, Photoshop is the way that you interface with your gradient is by selecting the colors over here or selecting the colors over here. I think it's easier to select them here personally. So if I go over here and I select this color, and then I go over here and I realize, you know what, I'm actually into like a lighter color, something like that. And then I can go over here and, I can change, that color, to something that's a little bit darker. And you can move this, of course, move around the gradient by selecting it. You can change the size of the gradient. You can change the opacity of the gradient as well, right? So it's a little bit see-through. And if you went over to the design, you could actually, not see through one color, see through the other color. So creating shapes, quite simple. Creating, the basic shapes over here. Changing, the edges. Obviously, no edge change on a circle. You have a line tool over here. A line tool, I think, is just really good for creating assets that will, break up content and create nice line symmetry when you're putting things into the design layout. Right now, with the pen tool is pretty straightforward. Works a little bit more like the pen tool in Photoshop versus the pen tool in Illustrator. So if I want to get a curvature that's in the center of a shape, so I have to click on the area where I would want the curve to start, and then double click on it. And if I don't do that, this is what happens. And this is a little bit frustrating for those that have Illustrator experience with the pen tool and didn't really use the pen tool much in Photoshop. So if I go over here and then I click here and I try to get that curvature, it brings this extreme opposing curvature on the endpoint that I just finalized the shape with. And that's super annoying. So you actually have to complete the shape with your pen tool and then add a point where you want, double click on it, and then it adds the little handles, and then you can move in that shape and you can then adjust accordingly. And that's just getting to know the process, but it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then you're able to click fill. Default, there is no fill, and I like that because one of the annoying things in Illustrator, especially when you're trying to trace things, is you're using the pen tool, and most of the time the fill starts to block the image, and then you have to turn it off. So I actually like the fact that exists. And then you can go over here and you can eyedrop. Now notice that when you eyedrop a gradient, it just eyedrops where you selected. It doesn't automatically turn it into a gradient. That could be frustrating for some. But I think that's just important to note. So you have over here, your different shapes. Now, if I wanted to right-click, I could actually make this into a component, right? And that's something that's cool. We'll look at that later. I'm just going to run through and finish up here. We have our text, pretty straightforward. Hello, world, and then you can select that. You can then change, the size. You can change the shape, the shape of the type of your font, the style of it. You can change the color of it as well. Once again, loving the eyedrop. You can just go over here, and then you are done. You now have your word over here, and you can then engage with it. Right? You have over here your artboard. This is really helpful because what the artboard is going to let you do is, as the name itself entails, it's create another artboard. Now, one of the things that you could actually do instead is you can actually right-click on and get some features, or you can actually copy the artboard altogether and create another artboard. And the zoom, works in two different ways. So as you saw over here, you can, I personally use Command plus and minus, but if you have to use the zoom tool, there's option lets you switch, or you could actually drag and click, and then that will zoom and snap that zoom that you created. Down over here, you have your assets. You have your layouts, which is a place where you can engage with those artboards quite quickly. And then over here, you have your plugins space. So that's the basic premise of the menu tool. And for that, I think we're good to go. So stay tuned. Check out the next video in the series to learn more about other components of this design process.